Hello and welcome to the Young Film Academy podcast, the essential podcast for teenagers looking to find their way into the creative industries. My name is Dan Allen and I am joined by Duke. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. I'm very excited to talk about some of my favorite movies in ever. I was going to say in the world, but ever in the world. There you go.
There it is.
I mean, we're talking Harry Potter, we're talking Mission Impossible, we're talking all the Harry Potters, Master and Commander, Last Samurai, Children of Men, Skeleton Crew. We're talking
not that Skeleton Crew.
Oh yeah, different Skeleton Crew.
Yes,
but Captain America, like the Marvel films, Age of Ultron, Ex Machina, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I think you get the idea. Like, it goes on, including Blood and Honey 2, which I edited.
Mm-hmm.
So many cool films. Peaky Blinders as well, so TV shows you got in here. It really is a phenomenal list. I know you've got some films on there that you nerded out to as well. Did I say Star Wars? I did say Star Wars, didn't I?
You did now?
I did now. Which one's on there I know you're excited about?
Well, there's this film. I don't think we talked about it in the show, but it was called Waxwork 2: Lost in Time, which is a great B movie. Mm-hmm. I've never seen the first one, but the sequel is great because it's all about time travel. But they're going through, and every time they do time travel, they're going to like basically different movie genres. So they do Aliens, they do like Excalibur.
Oh wow!
They do Haunted House. It's really good stuff. There's some really good Sleepy Hollow's in there, which is a great fun horror movie. Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow.
It's super cool. Yeah. So getting to work with some of the coolest names. So we are speaking to Shaune Harrison. He is an absolute legend in the special effects makeup department and also creature design and prosthetics as well. He's also worked on some animatronics within that world as well. So without any further ado, we can't wait for this. We're very excited to be talking to Shaune Harrison. Welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Good, thanks. Yeah, very well.
Excellent. We are very excited to have you here because you are you've worked on everyone's favorite movies, I feel. It's like a complete sort of nerd out. I mean, you got, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Blood and Honey 2, obviously, which we worked on together. But so many cool things. What was your first sort of step into the industry? Like, what was your first sort of job? How do you end up where you ended up?
So, I mean, obviously, because I got into the film industry in the 80s, so this is before social media. So it was a much different way of trying to get jobs. I didn't have any teaching or training, anything like that. So I started in 1988 on a film called Nightbreed, which was a Clive Barker film, which was, as my first film, it was a massive film in terms of creatures and monsters. And I think at that one point, he had there was something like 150 creatures that were done in that film. I mean,
wow.
I think half the budget went to the creature departments. So I worked for a company called Image Animation. That was Bob Keane and Jeff Portis. And every single day, we did about 30, 40 creatures every day, even if they weren't going to be filmed on. And then it had massive issues. It went over budget. It had to do massive reshoots. I think it doubled its budget. But I got onto it as a trainee. So the way I got into the industry was I was just, a kid sat in my bedroom. I liked monsters when I was about 11, 12. I was into Star Wars. And then I saw a trailer for American Werewolf in London, 1981. I was 13.
Rick Baker,
yeah. And there was a trailer on. It was on like film 81 with Barry Norman, and they showed the transformation, and I just completely got obsessed with how that was done. I had no clue. I thought it was all stop motion, and because I was into Ray Harryhausen and Clash of the Titans and Jason the Argonauts. So it was a case of, for me, it was trying to find magazines. So back then there were things like Fangoria and Cinefex and Starburst. So you start looking for magazines and it becomes a bit of a kind of a trail of trying to find things and trying to find images. And then I used to then buy like cheap clay and start sculpting my bedroom. And I didn't think at the time I'd get a job. I just wanted to make monsters. And then I got a bit obsessed with making monsters. And from the age of 14, 15, all I wanted to do was make monsters, but I had no clue however to get into the industry. And I spoke to my careers teachers at school, and they were like, well, you can't get in the industry because people in Hollywood do all that. So I was like, okay, so he said, become a draftsman is what I was told.
Oh, wow.
And then I found a magazine that had a film called Company of Wolves in it with Neil Jordan film about the remake of like Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
And Christopher Tucker was doing the effects, and it had his name and saying he was building stuff for Shepperton. Obviously, in my naive world, I thought they were still building the film, doing the film, making the film, not that the article would come out because the film was about to come out. So I sent some photos of my stuff to Chris Tucker at Shepperton Studios. And amazingly, it went from Shepperton to his house, and the stuff was sent to his house. It took 3 months.
Wow.
And he invited me to come over to his house when I think I was 16. And for the next 2 years, on and off, I was then chatting with him, sending work. He was advising me, saying, try this, use this materials, take better photos, because my photos were terrible. And then I started finding other magazines, and I found a magazine on Bob Keane, who'd just done Hellraiser 1. And I discovered that they were at Pinewood, so I then wrote to Bob Keane at Pinewood, and he asked me to come in for an interview as a trainee. And he said, it was originally going to be Hellraiser 3. I'd just missed out on Hellraiser 2, and suddenly Hellraiser 3 was put on hold, and then Nightbreed came up at the beginning of 88. And he said, as soon as it starts, we'll get you on as a trainee. And then I think I took about 8 months before it started up. And then I was on as a trainee with me and a friend, Paul, started. And literally, you just thrown in. I mean, I had no clue, I had no set experience, I had no experience of anything. I didn't know what I was doing. I was making things in my bedroom, and suddenly you're getting sent to write, and Shaune, on the first day of filming, you're on set. And I'm like, what? I've never been on the set. So that was literally like, but the thing about Bob Keane was he was great. He used to throw you in the deep end and go, there's some glue, there's a rubber monster, stick it on, go on set, you're on set tomorrow, 4:00 in the morning. So
wow.
And that was my training was that film, really, and there was a whole bunch of people on that film who they've all, they're all, some of them are still in the industry, some of them have won Oscars now and stuff. And then once you're with the company, then you stay on with the next job and then the next job and stuff. But Nightbreed was my first project.
What was that first day on set like? So, what were you doing? You mentioned obviously glue and monsters.
So, because I think we had about 5 months of prep. So there was a lot of stuff, just people building stuff. And the first day of filming was the end of the movie. So it was the destruction of Midian, where things are collapsing, and they wanted 4 creatures round this giant creature called Baphomet, and they're picking up part of him. So Bob said, Shaune, your cat thing that you... Because I used to sculpt stuff in my spare time there to try and impress the boss. And he was like, Shaune, that cat thing, right, that's going to be one of the creatures on the first day. And I'm like, really? And he went, yeah, so that's going to be sticking that one on tomorrow. And literally, my boss, the day before I went on set, he said, I'll show you how to stick a makeup on. And he got a bit of glue, he got a piece, did that, stuck it on, got some grease paint. He went, that's how you do it. And I had literally like a 15-minute lesson on how to stick a piece on.
Wow.
And then I was on set myself. Obviously everyone had their own makeup, but I was like, no one was assisting me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm now sticking the makeup on. I didn't know about timing and how long it had to be. So they were like, get it done as quick as possible. And then where do you stand? How do you interact on set? Nothing was given to us at all. When you're brand new, it's like, just go on set and just don't get in the way. So,
yeah. Did it feel like imposter syndrome? Did you feel like you had earned your place to be there at that point?
Absolutely terrifying. And I just thought I wasn't good enough. And I think also because I was quite alone when I was younger. So I sat in my bedroom and made creatures by myself.
Yeah.
To suddenly then work with a group of people was quite terrifying. I was quite a nervous person, so I was very quiet anyway. And I was a bit like, oh my God, everyone's better than me. And, how do I go around doing this? And so I just used to ask constantly, what do I do next? What do I do next?
And with a film like Nightbreed, like everybody is in costume except for like Craig Schaefer's character. Like, and there's every costume is different, or every makeup is different. Everybody's different. So they need as many people as possible to help that go as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I mean, Craig ended up going through about 40 days of prosthetics. Towards the end, he went through his transformation stuff. But literally, I think there was a crew of 60 of us. And it was a case of, right, Bob would say the day before, right, we want 30 creatures, background creatures. And he'd be like, you're doing these, you're doing these. And it'll be you by yourself doing it. You wouldn't have kind of two people. So you'd be given a character. And it was always on set for 8 a.m. So everyone had to be there every day at 4 a.m., 5-day weeks. And it was a potluck then if your makeups were on. But, to be honest, I was 20 years old and I was like, oh, my God, I'm doing a makeup. I was like so excited. I didn't care. That was 4 o'clock in the morning. It's just like, this is the best. This is like, I'm playing now. And, it was crazy. Yeah.
That's amazing. Was there a point, was there a film, how many films did it take for you to go, oh, no, I deserve to be here. I can really do this?
Oh, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I'd say something this is bizarre, but I thought Sleepy Hollow, which was 10 years.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I did about 7 or 8 years with Image Animation, and they were all super, super low budgets. Well, not super. I mean, Nightbreed was a bigger budget, but then we did super low budget and churn out stuff really quickly. And then you start to think, I want to start to move up the ladder a bit. I did get work on a film called The Mutant Chronicles. There was 2 versions of Mutant Chronicles. We did the original one in 95, which Steve Norrington was directing it. And then the whole film went down, and Steve went off and did Blade. That was a film where I kind of still felt, this is all a bit chaotic. And then we did a film called Fifth Element. But I kind of came onto it halfway through, so I wasn't kind of part of the original crew as such. I was a little bit, felt a bit, I wasn't there from day one. And then I did Mortal Kombat 2, which was horrendous. It's a really bad movie.
As an experience, was it okay? Or?
It was hard because it was night shooting in Thailand, so for 3 months, and it was 6 days a week, and we mostly worked the 7th day to get things ready. So that was all a bit
sure.
And then I did Star Wars and The Mummy, which were great, but I think it was. With Sleepy Hollow, I was given responsibilities on set, so I was kind of on set coordinating for some of it, and so obviously I was directly working next to Tim Burton for a lot of the time as well.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, people are asking me questions, which was amazing. I quite enjoyed all that. That was quite, just being on set and seeing that film being made, and I felt a bit more important on that film than I did on Star Wars and The Mummy and such, because the crew on Sleepy Hollow, because I was working for a guy called Kevin Yeager, who's an absolute genius. LA effects guy, is amazing. Did Nightmare on Elm Street stuff and Face Off, and his fake heads were just incredible. And I learned so much from that as well with Kevin. But it was just Kevin's right, Shaune, I want you to be on set and represent me and stuff. I'm like, okay. So that was
amazing.
And just to work with these guys on that was brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like watching, or working with Tim Burton, and obviously, you got George Lucas on The Phantom Menace. What's it like seeing these people? How much interaction do you get with them? And does the different directors, do they create different energies and different spaces for you guys to work? Does that make sense? Is it different under each one?
Yeah. So things something like Fifth Element with Luc Besson. Luc Besson had the whole film mapped out for years, so he knew exactly what he was doing. Every single design was down to a T. So he was literally come in and knew exactly every set stage. Star Wars, Phantom Menace, George Lucas, I think he was just more interested in the CG side of stuff. It was
He was doing the digital camera thing as well on that film, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the push of, I want this to be the biggest digital film ever done, and there's some creatures in the background. They weren't really interested in the creature side of it, the live action creatures. It was more, everything is CG. And then on the mummy Stephen Summers had no interest in rubber suits, just didn't like them. He was a CG man as well. He loved CG, he loved everything over the top. But with Tim Burton was, because obviously he's got that rapport with Johnny Depp as well. So you could tell they just knew, like each one was thinking the same. They knew exactly what to do. And because he had a really good cast in that film, and the set design and the DOP, is a guy called Emmanuel Lubezki, I just thought he was a genius. I mean, they would spend hours setting up the smoke in the building. So they had to, really freeze down all the giant sets in them. Like I always remember, I think we were on H stage at Shepperton. Just took hours to pump smoke in, constantly pumping smoke on set to get the temperature level, so the smoke would just hang in the middle. So everything was just taken to like this next level of kind of, we can spend all day just setting this up. So we wouldn't really film till the afternoon all the time. And we just went on for months and months and months shooting it. I think we went over by 3 months, which they named kind of enhancement shooting. They just, Tim was kind of left alone to do it because he knew what he wanted to do. And but what was interesting, because he had this whole Hammer horror vibe to it. He was like, I want the blood to look like a poster paint blood, like a
wax.
Yeah, it's got to look fake.
There's a red wax.
Yeah, which I thought, that's, as an effects guy, it's always hard to make. You don't want to make something look fake, and you're on set with the blood's like, it looks really cheap, but that's what he wanted, that look, and that, and it was amazing to watch him work and watch him, because he had one of the best crews around at the time as well. I think he got Oscar nominated for effects and for production design and cinematography. But they had the time. But Tim just kind of let Johnny do his thing. They kind of knew each other so well. It's like, you go on, Johnny, you do what you do, and I'll just support you and stuff. So, but he was lovely. He was so down to earth, Tim Burton, and just chat to all the crew. They never felt like there was a tension or anything. It felt like everyone knew what they were doing on set, and they had the time to do it.
Well, he loves all that physical, practical stuff. Like, I know he's a big stop motion person as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like, I think he wanted to do Mars Attacks as stop motion initially. Although they ended up, it had to be CGI, I think, for budget reasons.
I think so, remember. Yeah.
But you've got a background in sort of creature you've done both like animatronic creature design, is that right? And as well as like makeup, prosthetic based creatures. Like, what's sort of the difference between those, or if you could define those as well?
So I think in terms of, you've got animatronic creatures. I mean, I've done animatronics in the past. I wouldn't say I'm the best at by any means at doing animatronics, but I have done animatronics, and I find it quite difficult because you have to be very mechanically minded in how things do. But obviously, if you do mechanical stuff, there's a lot more setup time, and if you're putting a mechanical head on somebody, you got to make sure that they can see, hear, talk in it, because sometimes I'll breathe.
That one.
And the thing, sometimes people do forget there's a person in a suit. So, you'll see a creature standing in the corner, and people forget, there's a guy there sat inside that for the last 2 hours sweating inside. But it's more about, once the design's locked in and the sculpts are done and stuff, you can't really go back from it. Then it takes it's time and money, and you need people who are creature performers. That's the other thing. You don't want to get someone off the road and go, do you fancy wearing a creature suit? Because people are like, I'd love to play a monster. But when you're inside this thing, especially if you've got radio servos and stuff, motors, all you hear is like, noises around you. So it is quite off-putting. Some of them will have earpieces in so they can hear direction from either the director or from the effects crew. explaining, make sure you look this way, look that way, because if you're moving something on your face, you've got to overact the movement, because you think you're doing something, but it won't translate through the prosthetic or through the mechanical side of it.
Interesting.
And then you've got to make sure that you'll have a repair crew that's with you all the time. So if the head's coming off, you'll have maybe a servo that's come loose or something. So you always try and have a backup head if possible, because obviously batteries need charging. So whenever you get 15 minutes off a set, you're forever plugging batteries back in. And there's always that fear that they'll go, oh, can we put this underwater? And you're like, it's got mechanics in it, So, and then that's when you have to explain to the producers and stuff that, this is an expensive thing. We've got a stunt version that won't move, but we can use this over this one and stuff. But yeah, you just got to, I think if you're trying to work on creatures, when I first started, it was try and do everything. If you can sculpt, mold, design, paint, puppeteer, create, go on set, then you're more employable. That's how I was always told as a crew member. I can get you in over 5 other people, which sometimes works out better, and sometimes think, hold on a minute, I'm getting ripped off here. I'm doing everyone else's job. But, and it's only later on you start realising, oh, yeah, I could have actually asked for more money, when I first started. But, so you come from a background where you understand how to do an effect. If you read the script and it says, so you go, okay, how do we do it easily, cheaply, and good? You want to try and make it look cool. You want to make it repeatable. Sometimes things aren't repeatable. You can't. It's a one-take wonder, and that's the fear. And whenever you tell a director it's one take, they're like, no, you can't do it. But on a big budget film, if it's a one take, you'll still have more backup ones. You'll blow this up. Okay, we'll do it again. Blow another one up. Whereas if you're on a lower budget film, you haven't got that feasibility to do in the money side of it. But yeah, you just try, it's trying to explain to people, like, don't get too close to the head if someone's inside it and stuff. If someone's trying to talk to them, they won't be able to hear the same way that an actor would hear. So yeah.
Do you find they generally listen to like the advice or like the guidance, or saying that you need multiples of certain things? Or
yes and no. There's always times on jobs where you sometimes you'll do a little speech to crew or to someone, say, please don't play with this, it's really expensive, or please respect there's an actor inside this suit, so once he's in that, he can only be in that for an hour or so. Especially if you're wearing full lenses, you've got the full scleral lenses, your eye can't breathe after a certain amount of time. You need air. So after about 45 minutes, you've got to take the lenses out and then let them breathe for about half an hour before you put them back in. So you're always explaining, if they're the full ones as well, and the smaller ones are easier. So, and then if you've got dentures in, they won't be able to speak as well and stuff. Sometimes if they're big creature teeth, but sometimes you'll explain. Sometimes you'll send memos out to ADs and stuff and say, look, this is how you have to approach this creature. And they're like, okay. And then you're on set and it's all forgotten about sometimes. It's like, we did that on World War Z. I was working for a guy called Mark Coulier, and we were kind of doing all these zombies, and we had A, Bs, and Cs. So we had our proper hero ones, shoot close up, mid-round and background. So we kept saying to the zombie ADs we had, right, these guys at the back cannot come to the front. These guys at the front stay at the front. And then it's like, yeah, okay, understand. And then when you watch them, all the actors are all mingling. I'm like, no, you've got to keep it back, because sometimes people want to be on camera. We understand that. You used to say to them, like, tomorrow you'll be a front character and the next day you'll be a back character. So we will swap you so you do get your 15 minutes on camera. But and they're like, why can't it be in the front? Because you've been painted. You haven't got full prosthetics on.
Because you got the equivalent of like a Halloween face paint version of being a zombie. I was a zombie in a short film once, and they had a similar setup with that, with terms of like the hero zombies and then the the background zombies. and I got told to go to the background zombie room, but I ended up casually in the main zombie room, and no one asked any questions, and they turned me into a zombie, and it was wonderful. But I was familiar with that process. I wondered if you could tell us about Harry Potter. I'm a massive Harry Potter fan, and from what I can tell, obviously you started on that was initially in the animatronics or the animatronic design.
Yeah, well, it's under the creatures department.
Gotcha.
So something like Harry Potter, obviously, because the books, I think when the first one came out, I think there were 4 books at that point when the first film started.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of one of them films where I think the studio knew it was going to be big, but they just didn't know how much money to spend on the first one. They were a little bit reserved. And so I was working for a guy called Nick Dudman, who had done Star Wars with him and Fifth Element. And then when Nick had got Harry Potter, the first thing he said was like, at the moment, we're just doing goblins. That's kind of it at the moment. We don't really know what else we're doing, because we were working on it. And then there was the Jim Henson Creature Shop that were doing it. And then there was also Industrial Light and Magic doing the CG. So there was a bit of a, let's see whose quality of work comes up better than the other quality. So
did you feel that? Did you feel that competition, or were you not aware of it initially at the time?
I didn't know much about. I just assumed Nick was doing this stuff, Henson's were doing this stuff, and ILM were doing that stuff. And then we then find out that ILM were trying to do CG goblins. So they were doing behind the scenes testing and stuff, and then we were making puppets at that point, and we were literally doing, at the beginning you have quite a bit of time of R&D work of kind of, let's just try out some puppeteering, and make some simple puppets and see what they go with. And then they ended up saying, no, I don't think we can do that. So they ended up saying, okay, we're going to bring little people in and we're going to put them in prosthetic makeups, but we want to make them quite extreme as well. So that was quite interesting in terms of taking noses, that were like that long, and heads that were a good 6 inches, but also doing them in silicon. So silicon at that point hadn't really been around that long. So again, a lot of testing, and Nick's like, right, we need a nose that's that long, and we're like, how is that going to hold up? How's it literally not going to fall down?
So what were you using before silicon?
It was all foam rubber, foam latex.
Oh, okay.
So foam's still brilliant. Foam is brilliant, and you can still use it, but just sometimes on camera it doesn't look as real sometimes. The painting side of it is a bit different to how silicon absorbs light differently to foam. Foam's quite an opaque material. It's quite a dead material, so you have to layer it a bit more. Whereas with silicon, you're kind of 50% there when you start it, because it has a feel of skin, and then you can paint it. So when we started doing the Harry Potters, when we then got the goblins, and then Henson's were doing a little bit less and we got a bit more. And I think also because we were based at Leedston Studios, Warner Brothers Studios now, we were based in-house as such. It was much easier for the producers and director to go, right, oh, Nick, can you get your team to do this? Because you're literally there. Whereas Henson's were based in North London, Camden way. They had and they kind of refused to come and base themselves at the studios as well. They were like, no, we're staying away. We're staying in our building. So it was a good hour and a half if the director had to go to the studio. So whereas with us, he's like 30 seconds away. So then when Harry Potter 2 happened, Nick got everything. He was like, and Nick, Nick's a good producer guy he knows how to talk, so he's like, our guys will do this, our guys will do that for you. So by the second film we got everything, so we were redoing stuff that Henson's did, like Scabbers the rat and stuff. So they got to remake that on the second one. They employed crew from Henson's, but it went under Nick's name. So Nick's like, right, I'm going to take you guys who did the original one, come and work for me. So they came in and worked on doing it, and then Nick got it all the way through all these 8 movies. Then
on that first film, could you feel like a hierarchy between ILM, Jim Henson, and you guys?
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone was like ILM. ILM's like, they are the, when you're on set with them, you're like, God, these guys know what they're doing. I was like in awe because I'd worked on Phantom Menace with ILM, and it's like I'm working on a Star Wars film that ILM originally did, and so I always wanted to be a visual effects artist when I grew up. I mean, in fact, the very first letter I ever wrote to was Industrial Light and Magic in 1983. I got 4 letters off them over the course of a couple of years, and
wow.
and I've still got them now. I've still kept them, and so I think when you work on that, and and Henson's was such a big company as well. And I think Nick was always thinking, oh, Henson's are getting the bigger stuff, and we will just pick up the stuff around it. But I think Nick was very good at saying, look, we can help you do this. We can help the production do that. So it got a case of like, well, Nick's on our doorstep. Why don't we just get Nick to do the next thing? Because with that film, there was lots of things added as you went along. So when we came towards the end of the shoot, we had the thing called the Devil's Snare, which is this giant tree thing, wasn't it? And that was never part of anyone's budget. And suddenly Nick was like, right, we've got to make a Devil's Snare. And it's about 50 feet by 50 feet. And we're like, really? But because we were in-house, we went, there was a crew of, I think, about 15 of us who just started, they were building routes and stuff. And we were all on set, puppeteering it on set. They just mass-produced all this stuff and used a giant cargo net. And built on top of a cargo net. But because we were in the studio, we could go back and forth and dress it every day and do it that way. So, and that's what really helped Nick was that we were the producers, we were really on set next door to them.
Yeah. What were the other cool things you got to work on in the Harry Potter world? Because I mean, everything you're saying is things that's like, oh, that's really cool. And that's really cool as well. It's like all these like iconic things from Harry Potter.
So I worked on in the first film, which you don't see, I think you see about a few seconds of it, the death of Harry's family. So me and Mark did Voldermort, which you never see him in that one as a different actor. So we did his makeup and we shot all that sequence. Then the second one, I was doing the cat Hermione, which went on for months, literally months, because Harry Potter has the existing sets. You can just go in and do pickups whenever you want. That was the great thing about it. Like, oh, we've got the bathroom set. Let's go in a month's time and do another shot. So that was clever about the film. They
just never got rid of the set. The moment they realised the first one was going to do well, they
just kept them all as existed and just added to them. And I didn't do anything on the spiders on the second one. I was doing bodies with Mark and Paul. I'm trying to think what else I did on the second one. The second one was a bit of a blur. It was mostly the bodies stuff. I mean, it wasn't a big film for us, the second one, in terms of creature stuff, because the spiders, we had nothing to do with the spiders. It was all done by another creature crew in Nick's department. But then, like on the third one, it was Aunt Marge at the beginning where she inflates.
Yeah.
So that was about 3 months prep and about a month shoot.
Really?
For that sequence.
How did they do? Were you involved in like the finger swelling as well, or is that CG that shot?
No, everything is all makeup.
Wow!
So we had costumes that would inflate. We all sculpted different versions of Pam Ferris, because there was Pam Ferris in makeup every day. Then me and Barry Gower did the double every single day, so we could shoot all the extreme stuff with her face swelling, her body swelling, her fingers swelling, on wire rigs floating. I mean, just weeks and weeks of second unit doing stuff like that. But it was very precise because everything had to work, and we had to make. I mean, obviously, when you're having something inflate really big, there's a danger that could explode. So they got this. It was a latex specialist who used to work in fetish shops and work out how to build latex that could expand and not burst. And then they had a mechanical computer company from Nick's department that built this setup where they could press a button, they could inflate it with these giant tanks of air, inflate it to the desired size, record it, and then let it go down, and on action hit it really quickly go up. They also had a kill switch in case anything went wrong. They could just bang, and it was a big red button that just literally would cut the air instantly. Because obviously there's a safety aspect of that amount of air inside and people trying to move in costumes. And then they had little inflatable bladders for each finger. And it was amazing. Every finger joint had a bladder, but in the film, you only see one.
Well, this is what I remember, like that one, that iconic moment where she like points at him and the finger swells up. That's why I was wondering whether that was practical. I mean, it looks so real. So it's amazing to see. So they could have done the whole finger, but they just sort of went for
3 joints on each one. They had it. Yeah. They show one part of it. And then we'd worked on the werewolves, Lupin character.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, God, that was months and months and months of working on transformations and working with the team on these films are massive, sculpting things, making werewolves. And then they never used any of it. It all became CG.
That's what I was going to about the werewolves, because that's why like Rick Baker kind of retired, because he was doing the Wolfman, and producers like, why are you ordering so much hair? He's like, I'm making a werewolf movie.
It's true. I mean, I think when you make stuff like this, especially when you're making the design of the werewolf Lupin was quite spindly. So the first thing is like, how do you put a person in that suit, and how do you make them walk convincingly and safely on a film set? So they had these, I think they were ballet dancers, and they put on wire rigs and all sorts to try and move them on the sets, but they just couldn't move freely enough. Those suits were like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds, hell of a lot of money. I mean, an insane amount of money, and they never used a single frame of it, and CG did the whole thing. I think
you get that a lot these days, don't you? Like I know that they did a remake of The Thing where they did all the practical effects, but then they replaced everything with CGI. How do you feel about that in sort of like today's world?
I think it's quite easy to replace stuff now, because with a CG you can literally take your time doing it and getting every single frame. And I think for a puppeteer and a creature guy on a set, you only get 1 or 2 takes. You have to hit your mark the same way an actor hits it every day. Whereas with CG, you can finesse it, and like get that blink, get that movement and stuff before it's in the film. I would always love to see more practical creature stuff, and I think you can do some incredible stuff on set still. You just don't get given the time anymore. I think a lot of films, like when I first started, it was always like 6 months prep. Now, you get a month prep, 2 months prep on big budget films. And they'll go, right, all the money's going into the back end of the film for all the CG side of it. Because I don't think a lot of companies like to hand over money in the beginning of the film. They want to go, right, get the film shot, and then we'll do all the CG afterwards, and we can make it work. Because I know like some like Beauty and the Beast, the Disney one. They built full. They were beautiful suits, absolutely gorgeous prosthetic suits. That
for the Beast.
And they never used it. They just said, no, we'll CG in. But they were amazing. I think sometimes they get nervous of seeing them. Oh, it's a man in a suit, and they're like, oh, we'll do this cool CG creature. And it's like, well, it looks as good as the man in the suit,
Whereas the man in the suit is tactile. You can touch it, you can feel it. And it's a CG, you go like, oh, that's the thing. Like the same with the Thing prequel. Like if they didn't put CGI on it, it would look more real, because with the prequel, the Thing, you see the monsters, you're like, that's CGI.
It's a really hard one, because I do love CGI, and I think CGI absolutely has its place. I think, there's certain things where our stuff will never be able to do. You can't do it, but CG can do everything. And, I totally understand that. And it all comes down to money in the end, I think, cost and which way. Some directors love practical, some directors love CG. And that's, how you'll always be, really, I think.
Yeah, like with Phantom Menace that you mentioned earlier. With sort of the push into... Was it still cool working on the Star Wars sort of franchise?
Oh, God,
working with Yoda.
What were your sort of favourite things you got... In fact, from both Harry Potter and Star Wars, what were your favourite things you got to work on in each one?
Like Harry Potter, I was doing Mad Eye Moody, so...
Oh, nice.
Working with...
Did that eye really move, or was the eye bit CG?
So I'd say it was 50-50. So we had a mechanical eye that was... it had a little dot on there like a magnet, so you could spin it around. So he had radio controls. So it went down his back to a backpack, and then we had a guy, Chris Barton, and he could literally move the eyeball around. And then obviously when they needed a very specific shot of the eye focusing, they took the eye off and then had a white ball left, and they just CG'd the eye moving.
Gotcha.
So I did that one, and then I also worked with Mark Coulier on Voldermort on the fourth one, which was
amazing.
Hard. That was really hard. It was just hard because I mean, Harry Potter 4 was 16 months' work for me. So I'd started it January 04 and finished it April 05. So it was a long shoot, and we didn't shoot Rafe's makeup till February 05. So it'd been like 14 months. So the crew were a bit tired, and Rafe's coming into it like, I'm here and I'm doing the, everyone's like, God, we're so exhausted.
Because that was the first one. There was a delay, wasn't there? I think because they'd all come out consecutive years. I think they managed to come out 2001, 2, and 3. Yeah. But then the fourth one didn't come out till 2005. I think.
Yeah, end of 2005. I think it was one in November 2005.
Usually Christmas time.
Yeah. I mean, we started Harry Potter 2. They started filming the weekend after it came out in America, the first one. So they came on set on the Monday, said we've just broken all these records and we've done 100 million and all this stuff. And so they were really pleased. So they knew they had a hit on their hands then. And then we went straight into filming then. And then we had a break on the fourth one. But that, I mean, it was hard because it was such a big book. So trying to get all the footage. And I mean, even like Brendan, I think we shot about 67 days in makeup with Brendan, doing the prosthetic.
Brendan Gleeson.
And we did about 15 test makeups with him because it was a case of me and Barry Gower, Barry's now won Emmy. These lots of Stranger Things and the new Lord of the Rings show. Barry's brilliant, but I worked with Barry doing the makeups together, and it was no one really knew what Mad Eye should look like. Obviously Brendan has an input, J.K. Rowling has an input, producers have an input. So, you're kind of giving your input in, designs have been done, and it was like, the eye's too big, the eye's too small. So you just try and kind of work out what the best thing it looks, for the shot. So we did test after test after test to the point where, like, we need to make a decision, because I was on set every day with this. So I'm like saying to my boss, Nick, we need to know what we're doing because we need to make the pieces, and he's like, well, don't worry. And it went from 6 months design down to 2 weeks prior to filming, and we hadn't got a design done. And it was literally a scramble to get the first day's makeup. And then he was on for 2 weeks solid then. So he was every day, and the radio controls, they were still trying to work out how that was going to work and stuff. So, it was hard.
Yeah.
With a big series like Harry Potter, where it goes from like Chris Columbus to Alfonso Cuarón to Mike Newell, then to David Yates, do you feel like a change in the guard, so to speak?
Yeah, definitely. I think when Alfonso came on, he wanted to go a lot more kind of independent and gritty, and I think he made that obvious choice in the beginning of the third one where it was all handheld. So when you walked into Aunt Marge's house, the cameras, and he wanted to go, this is how I'm filming it. It's a lot more handheld stuff. Things have to look a bit more funny and a bit more natural and not too glossy and stuff like that. He wanted the hippogriff to have a poo. He said, I want, because, and if you watch the film, you see in the background where they're in the forest, it has a poo, and he wanted to show that's what a real thing would do. So it was really interesting that, and then Mike Newell was much more of an actor's director. He was all about the actor. I mean, he had no interest in the effects side of stuff because he said, I don't know the effects side of stuff. I don't understand it. One of the days we were on set with Mad Eye in the Great Hall, Mad Eye walks in, the camera comes behind him, and then Mad Eye shoots up into the rafters where the hall is, the ceiling, and obviously all you see is the film studio lights, and Mike's like, cut, I can see the studio lights, and it's like, no, that's all digital, don't worry, you're fine. He's like, he's like, right, I have no clue about, he said, let me film what I want to film, and you tell me if I'm doing it wrong on the CG side of it. And then someone like David Yates, who came from a TV background, was a completely different, because he was much more into kind of, little moments, and I think it was a terrifying thing for him, because he came from a TV drama to a Harry Potter movie, and we all felt a bit like, oh my God, this guy's going to be absolutely swallowed by this. But he was great. He just wanted to shoot intimate moments with the actors at the beginning, and it was quiet. He couldn't hear him on set. He had an AD next to him who would have to shout action when he's like there watching the monitor going, okay, action. Yeah, because he was just sitting so focused on this little area, intimate area, whereas then by the sixth one and the seventh one and stuff, then he got a bit more bolder and stuff, and a bit more confident with himself. But it was amazing watching him grow, because he's done all these other films, but I felt sorry for him at first. I thought, Christ, he's come into this.
Especially when the vehicle's well and truly moving by that point. Well.
Giving the keys to the car.
Yeah, and I think you were a bit scared that would he just be controlled, but they kind of knew what he wanted. And, David Heyman as a producer was brilliant. He completely, got directors in, and you think, wow, you're bringing, Alfonso. What, obviously Chris Columbus, he's done Home Alone. He knows his stuff. Whereas Alfonso is like, he's not directed kids before. He's not done this type of franchise. And I like that with David Heyman. He was bold and I think these people are perfect for it. And he was a really supportive producer on set. He was brilliant on set, actually, David Heyman. He knew exactly what he was doing, but he had a really good crew of people. Everyone got to know each other, 10 years pretty much.
Yeah.
Films, yeah.
I was going to ask obviously you worked on lots of sci-fi as well as Harry Potter. I'd put more into fantasy.
Yeah.
Do the different genres influence how you work? And if anything, are you ever trying to be more naturalistic on the crazy sci-fi stuff to try and make it more believable? I don't know. How does the process differ depending on the genre and the film? Because I know you've done Ex Machina.
Yeah, I mean, I've done,
loads of
Captain
stuff.
America and the Avengers. I mean, anything that you're into a big franchise, you don't get much chance to actually push yourself. You literally, Captain America, everything is designed down to a T. So you can't really move off what they want you to do. You have to be very exacting. You haven't got a say in it at all. Something like Marvel is a massive machine. They won't allow you to have an input. But at the same time, you get these amazing designs given to you. So, when I first saw the Vision character for Avengers, I was sculpting on that one, it was a kind of like, this is incredible. They have the best designers in the world working on it, but you always try. What I tend to do, if I'm working on a film and I see the director and I know that director's done some really cool creature films, you try and go down that style. Like you want to try and go, I want to be a bit more flamboyant and throw a few ideas in there, see what they think. Even if they don't like them, they've seen them. But you've got to be quite, I think something like Star Wars, you have that look of what a Star Wars creature is. So when we were doing Phantom Menace, everyone had Star Wars books, and like, oh, that creature from Return of the Jedi, and George Lucas would say, I want that one from Return of the Jedi. I want them in this film. And he said, just upgrade them. So you go, oh, cool. You do. I did Bib Fortuna in the Return in Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
And then
which one's Bib Fortuna?
Bib Fortuna. In Return of the Jedi, Jabba the Hutt's kind of right hand man, the tentacles.
Oh yes. Wow.
Yeah. So
cool.
So he was in Return of the Jedi, but they wanted him in Phantom Menace. So, funnily enough, my boss, Nick, had done Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi. So he's like, I've got loads of photos, Shaune, to show you. and all he said was just try and improve it. Technology is better now and materials are better now. And then you get an actor who comes in and you're like, oh, okay, his face is maybe not as good as you think, or it is as good as so that's the other thing. You get a really cool design and then you go, oh, the actor's probably not going to fit this look. So you always want, whenever you get a creature movie, you always want the skinniest looking person with no beard, no hair. You like have someone with, like we worked on Pinocchio, Dan, and we had a guy called Jay. Jay's brilliant because Jay's got the most amazing face for prosthetics. Like I said to Scott and Reese, employ him on every movie. So he's got the best face for doing makeups with.
This is just for allowing you to build up the layers, and then it doesn't make someone's face look, increasingly more round the more layers you add. So it gives you a better starting point.
Yeah.
That's why somebody like,
my face, I've got big cheeks. He couldn't make me look like a zombie. He'd have to make me look like an overweight zombie. Do you know what I mean? That's how you have to look when you're trying to design stuff. Yeah.
And that's why somebody like Doug Jones is always working. Doug Jones is like 6'8" tall. Always in all the
Guillermo films.
Yeah. But he's 6'8", but he weighs 120 pounds.
Yeah.
He's just very gaunt.
Perfect, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you always hope that you get one of them actors coming in the door. You're like, yes, we've got the best person to work on, because it does help you. It makes your job a lot easier. Sometimes I always remember Rick Baker said to Tim Burton when he was doing Planet of the Apes, the 2001 remake. Rick gave him a list of requirements for actors, how they should look. And he said for the character of Thade, he said, please don't give me someone who's got a biggish nose because we're trying to flatten their face. And then he said, and then Tim Roth came in. He's like, this guy's got a biggish nose. He's like, how can I make... So then your design has to implement changes then. You go, okay, I can't make him the way I'd want him to look because the actor, because he's such a great actor, and they will pick people for being a great actor, but sometimes you want them to be a great actor that looks great in the makeup as well. So you're always fighting it all the time, and if Rick Baker can't get his side across, then there's no hope for us lot sometimes. But yeah.
100%. Shaune, I wanted to know what we generally ask all our guests is what were you sort of doing during your teenage years that set you up for the success that you've had, or the job that you had, that maybe something that turned out to be really useful that maybe at the time you wouldn't have thought, this is going to be really useful later. And then also, what advice would you give to that teenage version of you if you could go back and whisper into the ear?
I mean, I think for me, as starting out, I think the most important thing is to know you want to do it. Because we meet a lot of people who go, I'd like to give that a go. It's like, you can't really give it. It's one of them jobs where it's not a glamorous job. Myself and Paula, we always tell people it's not glamorous. It's hard work. People, you shouldn't go into the film industry because you want to work in the film industry, because it's like, it's famous people. You will end up meeting famous people by the nature of your job. But I think it's being grounded with it as well, and having a bit of reality check that, not every single movie is going to have creatures and monsters and prosthetics into it. You will have hard times, that's so try, and if you can do it, also maybe do beauty makeup at the same time, because every film has beauty and hair. So try and be able to do beauty, hair and creatures. I mean, me growing up into it, I was obsessed with it. I mean, I was an obsessed kid. I mean, I lived and breathed this, and I still do now. I still make things for fun. I don't see certain things as a hard job sometimes. I mean, the hours and the amount of work can be hard, but I enjoy making creatures. I enjoy that side of it. I love making monsters. So you have to have a massive passion for it. Yeah, sorry.
On average, how many hours are you on set a day? Because if you're there at 4 a.m.
Well, not every film's different. I mean, you can be doing 18-hour days. I mean, Hellraiser 4 is still the hardest job I've ever done. And that was about 20 hours every day. And that was 6 days a week. That was 30 years ago. So I don't now. I mean, I was 25 5 back then. I couldn't do that now. I couldn't physically do 20-hour days. Impossible. It just happened that the way the schedule turned out, it was a nightmare for me and my boss Gary. I mean, I should have just, I couldn't walk away, but I should have walked away. But I think also growing up into it, it's making sure you're aware of what the industry's like, how hard the industry is going to be. I'd wished a younger version of myself getting into this, save money better. I think also not being afraid. I did turn down a film when I was really young. I worked on Nightbreed, and I did a film called Jekyll and Hyde with Michael Caine. And Peter Rob King, who was the designer, asked me, he said, do you want to come and work with me on Air America? And he was with Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr. in Thailand. He went, I want you to be my assistant. I was too afraid. And I said, no. I said, I don't want to do like makeup. I want to do creature makeups. So I didn't do it. And maybe I should have said yes to that, because it would have rooted me more into that side of it as well. So I wished I wouldn't have been afraid so much growing up. But also I wished I'd been more confident as well. I did think the first few years I just got walked all over because I was so nervous as a person. I wanted to be a more confident person and be a bit more openly saying stuff like, oh, we should try this or we should try that. Whereas I was like, yeah, I'll do it. That's how I was always like, oh, I'll make that. Oh, I'll clean that. I'll do that,
But that kind of energy often actually, like, I know you're sort of looking back thinking maybe that wasn't a good idea, but that's what helps get you far, I think, sometimes to begin with. It's being the person that does say yes. It's being the person that people know they can rely on. But it's finding such a balance of when that no longer becomes self-serving and when you at what point are you actually then just sort of breaking your back for
but it's
for others?
I mean, I think it is just, I think because I have a natural love for doing this work, I think people probably saw that as, oh, Shaune loves this, so we'll give it to him to do it because he loves doing that or he loves doing this. And I don't mind that. Whenever I know another script's coming in with creatures, something like the Pooniverse, I'm so excited for that because it's got like the coolest creatures. You know what I mean? I love making things where it kind of makes me happy. There's certain jobs I think, oh, I'm glad I didn't do that job, or I'm glad I didn't work on that one because that's hard work. Some movies you watch, you're like, God, that would have been hard every single day because they're so perfect makeups. Like if you're doing an old age makeup, you haven't got any room for any error whatsoever, and they are super, super hard jobs to do. Like Voldermort was a really hard makeup to do because it had to be exact every morning. All the veining that was all on him had to be in the exact place because Rafe would have seen it and would have said, or maybe out by a couple of millimeters. You think to yourself, doesn't really matter, but it did. So you had to be on the ball every single morning at 6 a.m., getting them on, getting everything and making him look perfect. And it was, there's also that expectation with something like Voldermort, which was scary, whereas I'm like, Voldemort's coming on set and you're like, oh my God. What happens if someone doesn't like it? That's the fear. So it's it can be quite terrifying sometimes, that pressure on top of everybody else.
Yeah, of course. Does the pressure ever go away, or does it ever get lighter, or is it the time pressure that's always there? I guess, isn't there?
Yeah. I think it's mostly time pressure. You always want the most amount of time. Like everyone wants the most amount of time to make a movie. And you just go, okay, all we can do is the best we can do in the time we've got. The other thing is you're always limited by your materials. And, if a material takes 6 hours to set, there's not much you can do about it. You can't open it in 5 hours and like, oh, I've ruined it. And then you start again. So that's the other thing. You're stuck by your limitations of time, and heat and coldness affects your materials. Heat make things go off quicker. In the coldness, things go off longer. So you're like, okay, I need to make this today because it's going to take 12 hours to set.
So does that mean you don't mind it so much? Because I get a bit unhappy sometimes when the sets are like really cold and you haven't prepared well enough. But actually you're like, this is perfect for all our materials.
You know what? Whenever we're filming on cold sets, I'm happy happy because the actors aren't sweating makeup off. But then you do something like, we did a scene on Pinocchio, which was water-based, we're in the water. So that's always like, oh, okay, we haven't tested this, how much, movement the actress is going to do in the water. And is that going to be an issue? Because, obviously on a big budget film, you will do tests. You'll do camera tests. You'll test the density of materials. You'll test any issues you've got with the materials. But we're obviously on a lower budget stuff. You haven't got that chance. So you just, you go, okay, the glue's good enough. This is good enough. Nothing should go wrong.
Yeah.
In theory, nothing should go wrong. And you hope things don't, because also what you're doing, you're buying materials from a company. So you're putting all your faith that this material that turns up is the right material.
Yeah.
And in the past, we've had materials mislabeled. So suddenly you think that's not isopropyl alcohol, that's acetone. You put the wrong, it's a big deal if you get a material wrong. The impact.
Yes.
It has happened in the past, not recently. But
especially if it goes on someone, like someone could be allergic to it as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
With the sort of key materials, I was going to ask, like, if someone really wanted to get into sculpting or wanted to start their own creature design, what's the best sort of materials to start with? Is it just like clay that they can get from any store, or is there a particular kind of clay or tools that you would recommend?
There's two different types of clays. You've got an oil-based clay and a water-based clay. So the water-based clay are pottery clays, which we still use today. We still use, if you're doing a big creature, you'll sculpt in pottery clay, and that's kind of £15 for a 12-kilo bag. I love water-based clay. I love it. I think you can get so much quick movements from water-based clay. If you're sculpting, if you want to do something like this size, or if you want to do a makeup, then you're using an oil-based clay. So we use the clays called monster clay. So these type of clays you can't get from local shops, but there are companies that you can order. Like you've got Neil's Materials. So Neil's Materials or Mold Life, they're the two main companies that you buy your materials from, and they have everything on there. The only thing I'd say to anyone starting out is they are expensive. If don't go out and buy 10 kilos of silicone because it's 300 quid. Why? The best thing I would say to them is go to a company and go, oh, have you got any samples? A sample is, this much. You can use quite a lot from a sample. Be brave. And that's one thing I wish growing up was a bit more braver approaching companies, saying, oh, have you got a sample of this silicone, a sample of this clay? Companies, and I know they do student kits, like types of makeup palettes to use. But again, we always say to people, don't buy a lot of stuff, because when you get in the industry, that's all supplied to you. If you see someone sending work to you and you think, oh, I love that, it's really lovely, but you can tell there's a naivety to it, but it's still beautifully done, and you think this person's got a talent. And I think that's the most important thing, is trying to stand out from the crowd as well. There's so many colleges all over the country that, a lot of people do the same type of work. So it suddenly becomes very hard to go, well, they've done 50 of the same thing.
Sure. So two people maybe like reach out to you, say, I'm really interested in doing it, but their portfolios are identical because they've done the exact same thing every single day.
Yeah. And then you have to choose, okay, well, who has more passion? Who has more interest? And people will always, whenever people if someone sends a CV in to me wanting to kind of get a job to me and Paula, the first thing we want to say is, can you send us some of your work? CVs, to be honest, I don't really care about CVs so much. If someone says I've had work experience, I've worked at McDonald's and all this, I'm like, great, I don't really care. First of all, can you drive? That always helps. It does help. And what have you made? So if someone says, oh, I've got a BA honours, I've got this, I've got a distinction, it's like, I don't care. Let's have a look at your work. BA honours, I mean, we've gone around, we've taught at a lot of colleges. And
I was going to say, you run your own courses, don't you? Is that separate to the colleges, or is that as part of it?
No, so we we do stuff here. We have private courses. If people want to learn something very particular, like I want to learn injury courses, or I want to learn how to sculpt a creature head, we will bespoke those courses to them. Also in the last few years, we've been doing more film work which is kind of what we want to go anyway in the future, more film work. But I think it's just trying to tell people the work will get you a job. Like when I first started, I still got my very first portfolio from 1983 to 1987, and I've still got. And I show people, and I go, look how bad it was. But what the bosses saw was, Sean's made a gremlin, Sean's made a full fake body, Sean's made a transformation head. But it's basic stuff. But people can see, he's really tried on all this stuff. And I always say to people, do you do anything in your spare time? Like, I haven't got any time. I'm like, well, you come home from college, what do you do then? I literally lived and breathed this when I started. So, obviously it's different nowadays. It's a different society and stuff. But I just think if you really want to do it, I love it when people send me work, I did this in my spare time. Because I think that's brilliant. I think that's people show that they have enthusiasm, that a teacher hasn't said to them, just sculpt this. They'll sculpt it, but they'll also make things in their own time as well. And I think that really helps show they have a bit of a passion for it and stuff like that. But it is harder to get in the industry, I think. But you are trying to stand out from the crowd is the main thing, with your work and stuff. But yeah.
I think that's great advice. So I think, do by all means learn from these courses, but it's all about that extra time, the extra passion that you have to make stuff that's unique and that you enjoy.
Yeah. And I think another thing is a little bit of research. If you're sending work to a company, just research that company. Just go, I really love the work you did on that or that. And, we every so often will get a letter from a student and they spelt my name wrong. And I was like, it's just one of them things where I think, is it really that hard to spell my name? When you're like, I really love your work. Like, well, you're not enough to know how to spell my name. it's little things like that. I think it's just, just do a bit of research on the person you're sending the work to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Shaune, this has been so enlightening, informative, and inspiring. I think not just for me and Duke, but also for everyone listening. So I know there'll be loads of young filmmakers that love creatures. They're going to love every film that you've worked on, which is a testament to how incredible your portfolio and CV is. But thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom with the next generation. So
that's great. Thanks guys. Thank you.
His entire his CV really is insane. Children of Men, Da Vinci Code, Sunshine, Stardust, I love. All these films. I know we mentioned a few of these in the intro, but yeah, literally so much. Inkart as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. But then also the B film stuff, Waxwork 2, Lost in Time. I love that film.
Yeah. It's literally crazy. For anyone that wants to get into this side of film, I feel definitely reach out to Shaune.
Spell his name correctly.
Spell his name correctly, Shaune, Shaune Harrison. I would check him out. What's his Instagram?
I think it's the prosthetics, this prosthetic studio. That's his website, theprostheticstudio.com.
Yeah, so
and I'm pretty sure that's also the Insta.
Yeah, I follow it, so I should know this. Yeah, the prosthetic studio. So you can follow both. Yeah, that's Shaune and Paula who work together, the dynamic duo.
And they do courses. So if you are already doing stuff and you want to get better at something, and you can't get a job, maybe check out one of their courses.
Absolutely. And you'll see a whole roster of their horrifying work that they've done on all their recent films, including the films that I got to work with them on, which is Blood and Honey 2, Peter Pan, and recently Pinocchio as well, which is very cool. But yeah, so check them out. And if you're interested in all this stuff, I think the advice that they gave, I think, was just so good in terms of like, you know, do these courses, but also it's about doing your extra work to set yourself apart, because, you know, if you're with 20 people that all do a particular effect on a course, well, then suddenly that everyone's going to have that effect in their course, you know.
The same portfolio, yeah.
So then it's about, can you differentiate yourself?
Yeah, so maybe go buy some water-based clay, because you get a lot of it very cheaply, and just practice some stuff that you want to get better at, or you want to learn. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, this is a question we've got a question from Michelle. Michelle says, "Hi guys, in brackets, particularly Dan, I'm working on a horror film and want to come up with a cool creature design. How could I get a cool creature on a low budget in my film?" It's a good question. It's a tough one. My first thoughts, I feel like you'll have some stuff to say on this as well, Duke, is the less you show, the better. So whilst 100%. You want to come up with a cool design, maybe only really show them fully, if at all, in the last few moments of the film is often very effective, because the more your creature is in the shadows and is mysterious, the scarier it will be, because you're going to use the audience's own imagination to build up this thing in their head and to make it even scarier. Is my thoughts. Do you have any, Duke?
No, that's a great thing, because like people's imaginations are going to run wild just piecing together what little you show them, if anything. So Jaws is the perfect example of that. They don't show the shark because the shark in the film did not work while they were making it. And so they just had to, you know, use mystery and light and shadows and underwater shots and music, especially music, to hide it. And then when they reveal the shark, that's when it's like, you know, that's why they reveal it so good when Roy Scheider's throwing the chum into the water, and then the shark comes out and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna need a bigger boat."
Exactly.
And then there's a movie that's called the Mothman Prophecies. It's a Richard Gere film, and it's very similar. There's a monster that's killing people, and they don't ever show it. They just always use mystery. And I can't remember who the director is. I think it's Mark Romanek. He never shows it to you. He just has other people who have seen it, and they talk about it, and they make these really rough sketches of it. And it's just always up to the audience to figure out in their head what it scares them, and it's better that way, just because it lets their imagination run wild, because your imagination is more fertile than real life.
100%. And then what you can do is you can actually focus your attention more on giving your creature an interesting silhouette, which is easier to do because you do it with clothes and with cloaks and with, I don't know, horns, whatever your thing has. Yeah. You can paint abstractly with it by adding all these bits to it. But if you backlight it, so the light source is coming from behind the creature, then all you're going to see is this black outline of this thing. And you can make that really interesting with little budget. And you can buy lots of little Halloween bits off of Amazon or from costume stores. I once did a creature, it was literally just a £20 face mask, but we barely showed it and we covered it in slime. This was in a short film I did, so it's only on there for like 2 seconds, but it's enough to be like, oh, holy moly, this is like a creature from somewhere or some other place. It's not something that we recognize, and it was enough. So it's just about taking existing bits. You don't have to spend loads of money, but the less you show, the better. And the less you show, the more effective it genuinely will be overall.
Because also think, if you're going to show something, it has to be better than The Thing, because The Thing showed everything.
Yeah.
When you have eye stalks coming out of a head and starts crawling around like a spider, like that's showing it. They left everything on film on the screen. And to be clear,
when you say The Thing, you're talking about the film called
John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, there is a prequel that came out probably in the mid 2000s or 2010s, which is actually not that bad, but and they use CGI over, which I think we spoke about in the podcast. They use CGI over the effects, and it just doesn't work as well, in my opinion. But yeah, if you're gonna show, you got it. The bar is The Thing, 1982. John Carpenter's The Thing. If you're gonna show,
absolutely.
If you're not gonna show, it's just more fertile imagination for the audience to get freaked out by.
Absolutely. And if you can, just change that silhouette to be something that's inhuman is what you're sort of after.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening, and do send us your questions to podcast@youngfilmacademy.co.uk, and we will endeavour to answer them, not ask them, on a relevant episode. So thank you for joining me, Duke.
My pleasure, Dan.
I will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.